just about good afternoon, everyone. And thank you so much to everyone for joining us today for our session on how libraries buy eBooks. This forms part of the Libraries Connected project around e-licensing in public libraries, which is supported and funded by Arts Council England. Over the last year or so, we've been running a pilot project with groups of libraries and publishers and aggregators to explore the use of different licensing models and promotions of ebooks to really better understand the ecosystem around ebook lending and to see where improvements can be identified and influenced, especially around availability of ebooks and everything that goes alongside that. And over the course of the project, we've been exploring different ways of building relationships between libraries and publishers to really jointly promote books and reading using the ebook lending system. So we've been facilitating author appearances, the supply of assets, and broader promotions. And in general, I think we've all really been learning a lot about the role of ebooks in libraries. I'm delighted that we've also been working with the Reading Agency, who do a lot of work with publishers and libraries, in particular to host this event, which I hope will provide some of the insights that we've learned about how libraries engage with ebooks, as well as working with publishers. There'll be lots of opportunity to ask questions and also share your own experiences. We do have two speakers. Unfortunately, one of our speakers hasn't been able to join us this morning, Stu Hennigan from Leeds. But we do have two librarians who will share their experiences and insights. And we will encourage others to join in and share their experiences and insights as well. And we'll have a Q&A at the end of it as well. The chat is enabled to post your questions, and do keep saying hello. It's great to see where you've all come from. That's brilliant. And we'll collect those questions and we'll use those in the discussion afterwards. So before we kick off with our librarians, I'd just like to ask Kimberly Sheehan from the Reading Agency to give us a short introduction on the work that the Reading Agency does around publishing and libraries. So Kimberly, over to you.
Okay, thank you, Emma. So that should just be loading now, hopefully.
Yeah.
My name's Kimberly Sheehan. I'm a campaign manager at the Reading Agency who connects librarians and publishers to help challenge the UK's literacy crisis. It's a pleasure to be here and to see lots of familiar names as well. And also, I'm really excited to hear from Wiltshire and Greater Manchester. So the Reading Agency is a UK charity with a mission to empower everyone to read. Evidence shows that reading improves health and well-being, life chances and social connections. We champion access, the proven power of reading by providing activities, as Emma said, for all ages by working with public libraries, prisons, hospitals and other community settings. We are proud. I've just quickly put up some of the impact that our work has had. So in 2023 to 24, we reached 2.4 million people across the UK. And today I'm going to touch on some of the ways that we connect publishers and librarians at the Reading Agency. So I work with publishers on a subscription basis that they get out every year, where we run marketing campaigns that support them with reaching new audiences and encouraging book sales. Here is just like a quick snapshot of just a few campaigns we worked on last year. In 2023 to 24, just our campaigns alone reached over 500,000 people, most of them in libraries. So how we connect publishers and librarians. So we have two new pages on our website for our publisher partners to share offers, such as display packs and reading group sets of book, who, if it's through reading partners, is always free at the point of access. With our librarians, school and reading group networks. If you follow this QR code, you will see the librarian offers page, and in the right hand, something really exciting is that librarians can visit available author visits. So this is where our publisher partners will share authors' availability, and then librarians will get in touch with them directly if they'd like to book in. Something we're really excited with this year. Oh, sorry. So at the Reading Agency, we do have many other opportunities for publishers to engage with librarians, including our book list, so the Summer Reading Challenge, World Book Night, Radio 2 Book Club, and the Blue Peter Book Club book lists, which we collate with support from librarian external readers. So we're always getting the feedback from librarians. It's really important. We also recently hosted 3 publisher insight sessions from the Reading World team here. So following these events, we announced data and insight reports. These reports provided publishers with crucial consumer data, learning and expertise from the 10 years of the Reading World book selection process, alongside with the co-production. A key highlight for us is our reading partners. Now it's just the Reading Agency's publisher roadshows, which take place in November. This is where our publisher partners will share the upcoming titles and authors available for visits with librarians to help with stock selection. Hopefully some of you have been to them before. So last year it was across 2 days. 1 day is for adult titles and publishers, and the next day is for children and young people titles. We had 7 sessions, 56 authors and publishers presenting, and over 1,600 people, mainly librarians again, who came along to just hear about all of the upcoming books, which I also really enjoy listening to. So our attendee feedback from these days showed that a high number of respondents found these sessions really useful, and many respondents from both roadshows also told us the value of these sessions in planning future events, in particular authors' books or buying stuff. We'll be sharing the link for this year's roadshows in October. So that was just a really quick whistle-stop tour from me of just a few ways that we hopefully connect. So please do get in touch with me if you've got any questions. And also if any publishers would like to hear more, please do get in touch, because we are doing a showcase next week on just some of the ways that we can help to support your campaigns. Thank you so much, Emma.
Thanks, Kimberly. We're now going to move on to Catherine. So Catherine Preston from Wiltshire Libraries, who's going to give us a general introduction around her experience of buying ebooks for the service. Kimberly, you're still sharing your screen, so you need to stop sharing.
Yes, sorry, I'm trying to do that. Sorry what you said. Sorry about that, Emma.
That's all right. Catherine, over to you to share your screen.
Thank you. Press the button and see what happens.
Nothing just yet.
It's coming now. I think it took a little while for the little pop-up to appear.
Yeah, we're there.
Brilliant. Okay. Yeah, as been mentioned, I'm Catherine Preston. I'm from Wiltshire Libraries. I'm the Development Librarian for Information Services. I did, when preparing for this talk to a few other people who buy ebooks, so hopefully that will cover the in general part, but as we've said, mostly I'll be talking from my experience of buying ebooks. In Wiltshire, we've been providing ebooks to our customers since 2012 and have seen interest in them gradually increase over the years. The big catalyst, as it was for everyone really, was the COVID-19 pandemic, when they briefly became our main reading offer really. They are now a key part of our offer as well. I've been involved in the purchasing of the adult ebook content since 2012, but I now actually am kind of like the sole purchaser of adult ebook stock. And then we have our development librarian for children and young people who selects the stock for children and teens. Right, let's move to the next slide. So in terms of choosing what to buy, I find the bookseller, as many of you do, I'm sure, a great source of information, as well as the list created by our ebook supplier, which is Overdrive, who provide the Libby app. The weekly bookseller top 50 list is a great tool for ensuring that we purchase the most popular titles available to us. I also keep an eye on prize long lists, TV book clubs, Book Talk, and purchase stock to support local events as well. We really try and make it so that our collection complements the offer in our physical libraries. As you'll see there, I kind of got a carousel for the Marlborough Literature Festival, so that's one we're kind of promoting at the moment. The issue and hold data provided by our supplier, and my knowledge of what's proved popular in the collection help me to decide what is purchased. And if in doubt, I can also have a look at how the print copies are performing as well. That can be useful. We do receive purchase suggestions from our customers, which we satisfy if they are available at an affordable price, and we think they will actually be popular going forward. And one library service I spoke to did actually report spending half of their monthly budget on customer suggestions. We're not quite there yet, but yeah, that's kind of an interesting information to have. I do periodically also try and encourage all the other library staff in the service to input recommendations, and that goes towards our Books We Love carousel, which is again on the slide, so that we can kind of help keep that kind of like book recommendation going, even though it's in a kind of digital format. Some library services did also say that they make use of standing order lists from their suppliers as well, so that's another route that can be taken for stock selection. In Wiltshire, the majority of what we purchase is fiction and a small selection of popular non-fiction titles, as this is where the demand lies and kind of what our budget can cover really in terms of ebooks. We see our e-magazine collection as representing our main digital non-fiction offer, as this ensures that the information is up to date as well. Next slide. I thought it'd be helpful to start by kind of like giving a bit of an overview, just in case any of you aren't aware of the different lending models that are available. So they tend to be covered by one of the lending models listed on the slide. Occasionally there are a couple of options to choose from at different prices, but most of the time there's just one lending model available for each title. The four main lending models are one copy, one user. So that's one that can be borrowed by one person at a time and doesn't expire. That is really good in that you're not going to have to keep buying new copies as it expires, because it doesn't expire. But you do obviously have to buy additional copies to satisfy request lists, because we do get quite a lot of request lists for our ebook titles. Another option is metered access non-concurrent. So that's borrowed by one person at a time, but expires after a set number of checkouts or a set time period. This is obviously trying to replicate a physical book kind of lending, and it is a very common one. A lot of the books we buy are kind of under this model. It's often more expensive though than a physical book, so if you are having to replace it, you're having to replace it at a higher cost, and it also expires before a physical book typically would. A lot of the times our books can last quite a long time, especially if you bought it in hardback, whereas these having a set time period doesn't give you that kind of leeway. It can also be a particularly tricky lending model to use when buying series, because obviously you've got that issue that they will expire at different times as different kind of like issue totals are met. Another one, but one of our favourites and one of our customer favourites, is metered access concurrent. So that expires after a set number of checkouts again, but can be borrowed by multiple people at once. This is much more kind of common in the e-audiobook area, but you do find a few ebooks under this format. And we do just like to say a big thank you to the publishers who do make it available that way, because it's obviously popular with customers because it's always available when they look, and it's popular with us because we get a lot of issues from it. It also does give us quite a bit of flexibility in terms of promotion. We know we can kind of promote these titles really well, and it won't be that people are going there and being disappointed because the book is on loan already. It also means we can do things like county communal reads, so we can kind of say, okay, everyone read this book and we'll come together and talk about it, which obviously then means we can promote that to lots of ways. We promote it on social media, through our libraries, and also means that we tend to buy more copies of books by that author, so we can do a big promotion of that author. So yeah, we really love those ones. It also means if it's something that we buy and it's from a concurrent one, we'll put it in our reading group suggestions carousel, so that we are promoting it to our kind of reading groups as well. Obviously, these ones do expire, so if we'll kind of all say 100 people borrow it, then we will need to buy replacement copies, so you do have to consider that. And obviously you still consider the cost, so if it's a concurrent one but it's kind of like not affordable, then we wouldn't purchase it. The final one, which one I can talk less about, is cost per circulation. So that's where you only pay when someone borrows a title. It can be borrowed by multiple people at once, but it's not one, as I say, I've got much experience with, because it's quite hard. I haven't seen a way that can help easily manage my budget in terms of keeping track of that kind of model, but I know some libraries do use it, so it'll be interesting to hear if other libraries are using that and how they're getting on. So the preferred model of customers and myself are metered access concurrent, obviously, to get the most issues and increase customer satisfaction. And we do also like the one copy, one user option due to the lack of need for it to regularly be replaced. And that means that we can spend our money on buying a wider range of titles rather than just replacing the same title over and over again. So in terms of how often, I do tend to purchase a monthly basis. What we do is we purchase content credit right at the beginning of the financial year when we get it through. And then I basically just kind of do a spreadsheet and divide it up through each month so that I know I'm spending a bit each month and not just spending it all at the beginning. And they basically, what I need to do is kind of balance the purchasing of new stock so it remains current, the fulfillment of request lists so people aren't waiting really long time for the books, and also the replacement of expired titles. So they're kind of 3 considerations each month when I'm kind of choosing how to spend the money. There is obviously occasional need to buy titles in between as things come up, but most titles are purchased at the start of the month in Wiltshire. Of the authorities that I spoke to, monthly was quite a common time period, but some people did buy weekly and others just did it ad hoc. And I can see someone's just commented, I purchase every day. I love that. I would love to be able to purchase every day. Okay, go to the next slide. So in terms of how we create the collection, we do use the carousel feature on Libby quite a lot, and we try and make it kind of match our physical book displays as much as possible. So the aim to introduce readers to new authors and to highlight titles in our collection that people might not necessarily be kind of immediately searching for. We also use them to promote our physical activities, as I've said, such as author talks and the summer reading challenge we did a carousel for as well. They're changed roughly monthly, kind of the same as kind of like library schedule, just because we do have a kind of standard period of 3 weeks for the ebook borrowing, and we kind of want people to see different collections when they come in. They can be seasonal, so I always like at this time of year, I'm probably getting into the stage of winter is coming, unfortunately, kind of displays, and also based around awareness month, so we'll do a Black History Month carousel. We use it to promote our reading well collections and also more quirky things, so like you would in a library, kind of what's in a name, so books with names in the title, armchair travels for books set in other countries, that kind of thing. On the slide, you can see that I haven't got any of my kind of quirky ones. I was just wanting to see, but at the moment we've kind of we've just taken the Marvelous Makers one down. We've got our Reading Roadshow, which is our kind of author talks that are coming up in the libraries that we're promoting, including two of our kind of titles that we're pushing as kind of big reads. So both A Bird in Winter and the David Mitchell one have got that concurrent use option. So we're kind of like promoting those quite a lot, and we're going to have a reading group day event on those. And you've also got quick reads, highlighted the selection there, and reading well for dementia. In terms of challenges, our budget for purchasing ebooks and the audiobooks, because as with other library authorities, we do kind of view them as one thing in terms of budget. So it's not just ebooks we're buying out of this budget, we're buying audiobooks as well. It has increased over the years, but it's still only a relatively small proportion of our general stock fund. So my biggest challenges are balancing the purchase of new titles, as I've said, so make sure that I am kind of like getting new ones in, but also replacing expired ones and getting additional copies of those popular titles in whilst staying firmly within budget. Another big challenge is ebooks not being available for purchase. I'm presuming kind of most publishers in this room do provide kind of ebooks to libraries to lend, but so there's some publishers that still don't provide ebooks. So that's quite hard for our customers to understand that, okay, why haven't you purchased the latest so-and-so? It doesn't kind of do a good deal for our reputation because it makes it look like we don't know that this is a popular author. Also, we do have some where some publishers have kind of gone into special deals with certain suppliers. So it will mean that me not being with that supplier, I've got to wait 3 months before I can purchase. So again, it doesn't look great because it looks like I've not decided to buy this book until it's really been proved that it's popular three months in, which people might have stopped looking by that point, thinking, oh, they're just not going to buy it. So it does mean that authors who don't provide the books are missing out because people are much more likely to try a new author if they're borrowing it for free from the library, and so that can be a good way of kind of getting new fans. So yeah, we would recommend that ebooks are available. High cost is obviously another big one. most ebooks, however, kind of like they may be kind of more affordable, but they are going to be more expensive than the physical books that we buy. So that means we're getting fewer titles than we would if I spent the same amount on physical books. There's no standard price for an ebook, and so price does vary quite widely. It can go for anything from, say, the full retail price of a paperback to as high as, say, £35 to £70. I've seen it, and I'm sure higher as well, depending on what's been decided. Ebooks with high prices, it isn't that they're part of the concurrent ones. It is just that there might be a one copy, one user for that price. So it really does become really hard to justify. So that's a big challenge to kind of tackle. So with these challenges in mind, my kind of plea for how publishers can help in my mind is making ebooks available for libraries to purchase at the time of publication would be amazing. Using the one copy, one user and metered access concurrent user models more, or considering them when kind of like making your ebooks available. Affordable prices. So yeah, it's not that we're going to spend less money because you've made them affordable. It just means we're going to be able to buy more titles. So yeah, it would be really good so that we can have a wider range of books. Provide promotional tiers online or in-person author talks. Obviously, we've been doing that as part of the pilot, and obviously the reading agency have got an offer, but more work that we can do on that. It would be great to kind of like work in partnership, especially as we know kind of with the ebooks. I think we're finding out that it kind of like it's the older people that maybe not seeing the kind of other publicity that publishers might be putting out that use the libraries ebook collection, and also that we just can kind of like work together and promote things to all our audiences and just get the word out there about these amazing authors and books. Right, I didn't provide contact details, the one thing I did realise, but yeah, I will put my contact details in the chat if anyone does want to ask me any follow-up questions, but that is everything from me. Thank you.
That's absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much. There's a couple of questions in the chat, but I've also got lots of questions that I thought might be helpful for the audience as a follow-up. So one of the questions says, and you don't have to answer this, but what's your budget for e-adult? But don't feel you have to answer that if you feel it's commercially sensitive.
It's not great because we kind of also it's kind of, as I say, it combines in with the audiobooks and kind of with the magazines. So I'd kind of like probably not answer that one.
That's fine. Yeah. That's fine. So some questions that I've got then is do you ever take risks on books that you don't necessarily know if they're going to be popular? So quite indie publishers, for example, might be publishing a whole range of titles and authors that you may never have heard of. So would you typically take some risks, and if so, what would that be based on? Would it be based on publishers' promotional materials or something that you've read in the bookseller? How would you make those decisions?
I think, like you say, kind of getting it kind of to be noticed. I think it's also at the moment with all the challenges, it's like often you're spending your budget just on kind of like getting the bare minimum. So kind of having if some kind of like if the books were more affordable and if kind of like we could kind of like look wider, then that's kind of part of the kind of like trying to look wider. But I think it also would. I think it depends. Yeah, price is good. Often, the one thing independent, kind of one thing I really have noticed through the pilot is that they do have an audience, but I think it's just me knowing about them, and they do tend to be some of the more affordable ones as well. So that was a really nice thing to see. That okay, I could get kind of more issues and maybe a bit more flexibility on the lending model, as well. I think it is just that kind of like raising awareness, which is probably where the promotional materials come in and working closer with publishers. Because if I'm being told every month, okay, there's all these titles out there, and by the way, you could get 10 of these for one copy of one of the kind of more well-known authors, then yes, it's definitely going to be in consideration. I think, I hate to say it, but book covers have a big thing to play. People do judge books by a cover, and so I think that's sometimes where maybe some of the indie ones struggle a bit more, is that they haven't got the covers that are going to grab people's attention quite so much. But definitely I would like to buy them more.
I'll come back to some of the questions in the chat shortly. But so if publishers do want to send out promotional materials, what typically would you like to receive? Is it digital assets via email? Is it an ARC that comes in the post that tells you a little bit about the book and when it's coming out? What would you like to ideally receive?
I think digital, would be really good for me. Obviously, I'm the information services rather than the stock manager, so I'm pretty much dealing in digital all the time and look after our
Yeah.
social media and things as well. So for me, it's social media resources, plasma screen resources. Our libraries have plasma screens that we can advertise things on, and that kind of thing. Obviously, my kind of stock manager colleague would probably might want a few more physical materials as well. But yeah, for me, especially for the ebooks, obviously it makes sense. Our audience is online, so
yeah. And just talking about audiences, and you may not know the answer to this one, but do you find you have, and there's been a little bit of chat about this, do you have different audiences for your ebook and e-resources compared to people that come into the library and borrow physical stock?
We have a wide spread, so it kind of does cover. I think the thing that surprised most people, less so me because I've been interacting with them for purchase suggestions and things, is it's a lot of older people reading our ebooks. I think people tend to think it's of the young, but no, our more prolific readers and requesters are definitely in that kind of even 75 plus, kind of getting to the stage of like, I think my biggest one is in her 80s. So yeah, it's kind of like that. That's kind of, whereas it's a bit more obviously got a young, I think it's also the children's we do buy them obviously, but they're not as popular, whereas obviously in our physical stock, children's stock does amazingly well.
Yeah. And in terms of business models, through the pilot, you've been able to choose which business model you purchase the book on. How does having that choice work for you? Do you like being able to say, right, I'll have that book on that business model, that book on that business model?
Very much so, and it's also meant that I've been able to double up. So like with ones, especially in series, we had some in the pilot that were kind of part of a series, and you could buy them as concurrent ones so that everyone could read them and kind of get through the series. But obviously the first book in the series is going to run out way before the ones at the end of the series. So I was able to then also buy a one copy, one user version of it.
Yeah.
So I bought two books, but they're doing two different things, and it kind of just means we're retaining a series. So that was really amazing to have. It's not an option we often get.
Yeah. Somebody's put in the chat about, the percentage of budget that goes on e-resources, and you've said that the e-resource budget's quite small compared to the physical budget. Does that reflect in user numbers as well? So you still have a much greater number of people borrowing physical rather than e?
We have had greater investment in it very recently, which is why we were able to get involved in the pilot. So this is where I'm kind of like struggling. But it used to be what we would do is we would keep an eye on the issues, and then we would treat it like a branch library basically. So if it got to the stage of it being kind of like, as one of our kind of like higher levels, then it would have more of the budget of one of those. So yeah, we do very much kind of view it as like another branch in our kind of organization. So yeah, it kind of as it grows, we will spend more, but obviously there's a limit because you do still need to keep stock. And we've got 30 libraries in Wiltshire, so that's a lot of libraries to keep physical stock in.
Keep physical stock in. And somebody's put they tend to buy something in either e-book or e-audio, so that you've got the breadth. Do you tend to do that? Do you buy something in an e-book and then not e-audio, and something in e-audio and then not e-book? Or
it can influence. Obviously, I think I don't make a concerted decision. Although the only time I do is if the ebook is really expensive to the stage where it's got so expensive it's about as expensive as an e-audiobook.
Yeah,
I would tend to choose the audiobook because I buy more ebooks, so I tend to think, well, okay, I'll help the e-audiobooks out with this one and give them it rather than. But a lot of the time I will buy, like I think with the pilot books, a lot of the ebooks we bought from the pilot, if they were really successful as an ebook, I'd think, oh, actually, it's available as an audiobook as well. I'll buy it as that. But yeah, definitely where there's a kind of price similarity, I will choose the audiobook.
Okay. Oh, that's really interesting to know. And I did have one last question, which comes from one of our publishers actually, is are you seeing any take up or difference in take up for books that have come from other languages into English, or do you feel that customers don't really notice that and make a decision on that?
I did briefly, as part of the title, make a carousel for kind of like books in translation, just kind of like, because obviously some people do really love, but like I quite like it if it's been translated. It ended up, because of demands, ended up being quite a brief one. But no, it tended to be more what the title and what the subject was. So of the ones, because I bought a lot as part of the pilot, I bought a lot that had been translated, and some were really popular and some weren't. So it really did depend on what the book was. So actually, I think it's just the same as everything. It just depends what the subject is and whether the story captures someone.
That's absolutely brilliant. And we might come back to you at the end, Catherine, with some more questions. But for me, that's just been really insightful as well. And you know, it's great that everyone's contributing on the chat as well. It's really
Yeah, I
interesting
look
to
forward
hear
to
your
reading through
different
the chat.
perspectives. Yeah. So Carol, you're up next, and we've got Carol Langham from Tameside joining us now with a presentation as she buys across a consortium, and I'd imagine there'll be some similarities there that you can pick out, Carol, but
Yeah.
delighted to hear your view as well.
Okay. Right, let's see if I can get this to work.
Marvelous. I can see it.
Okay, I've just started the, start the slideshow. Is that okay?
Looks good to me. So
Right.
far, so good.
Okay, right. So just a brief introduction. I'm Carol and I work for Tameside NBC, which is one of the Greater Manchester local authorities. And my role in Tameside, part of my role is a stock manager. So I buy physical stock here. But I have taken over in April this year. So I've only been doing it for a few months. I took over from a colleague in Manchester buying for the AGMA consortium. So just a bit of background to that. So the AGMA consortium is the 10 Greater Manchester authorities, plus Blackburn, Cumberland and Westmoreland and Furness, Holton, Knowsley and St Helens. So it's growing. I think it started off initially as some Greater Manchester authorities and then more people have joined us. I'm not entirely sure how long it's been going. We joined in 2017. We're with BorrowBox, they're our ebook platform, and we also have e-audio. And this year we signed up for the magazines and newspapers, so we've all got they're our main supplier really for all our digital resources now. We've got, well, I put approximately 142,000 members, but I had a quick check this morning and that's gone up to over 150. We have quite a lot of usage. It's gone up for both users and our issues, so that's good. It's just a shame we can't keep up with the number of books, but we are. It's something that is growing as we go along. Right, so I'm not going to give exact figures because I'm not entirely sure if I can sort of say what everyone's budget is for this, so I don't want to talk on behalf of everyone, but it is based on a contribution based on their population, so it's a certain number of pence per head that we spend. There's a minimum amount agreed in the contract, so we all pay at least what we've agreed to, but some authorities have increased their spend. So this year we in Tameside did actually increase it by a pence per head. We also have ad hoc contributions, so quite often we do the thing at the end of year where if people have got some spare cash they put that in, or throughout the year there might be a specific collection of books that an authority wants to buy and they'll pay for that themselves. But it does work on a principle of a shared collection and budget pot, so I just have the big amount of money at the beginning of the year from everybody, and we buy all the books and everyone has access to all the books that are bought. There is an option that we could ring fence it. So if an authority really wanted a collection of books, they wanted to spend money on it, but they wanted their customers to obviously get to read them as a priority, that could be ring fenced, but we haven't done that so far. So I think it's good that we all kind of chip in together and we all share the costs. So my role, there is only, I basically do the stock selection for everyone. It's kind of, I think my predecessor found it easier to just have one person doing it. So we've continued doing that. It is quite a lot to do for one person. So I do have a couple of colleagues who help out as well with the campaign titles. So I mainly do the ordering per month for all the new releases, but also on a weekly basis, I do the reservation lists and the expiry reports. So the reservation lists are produced by Belinda, and they send me a list of all the books that have a ratio of more than one person per 5 copies. And then I look through it and I decide which ones to buy. Now, I don't buy all of them because if I bought the full list every week, it would literally be sort of thousands of pounds, because we have pretty long reservation lists, unfortunately. So I will go through that. It's very useful because I can see what's going out, what's popular. So I'll do that every week and try and get those reservation lists down. I usually do a ratio of 1 to 6, but it depends on the book. There's some that you just have too many copies of. That, you know, how many copies do you need of some books, because you know that at some point they won't be as popular. And we also have expiry reports. I should have said we have 1 copy, 1 user as our model. That's all we have at the moment for eBooks. So it's where, well, I'm not going to explain it because Catherine's already done that. But it does mean that they will expire after so many loans or after a couple of years usually. So what Belinda do is send me a list based on our top 50 loaning authors of all the ones that are going to expire. So they'll say this book is expiring, do you want to buy another copy? And if it's one that I think it will keep going out, I'll buy some more copies of that. It's just a way of maintaining the collection. So that's done on a weekly basis. Then I just have ad hoc requests. Customers either ask librarians in their authority, or they contact BorrowBox through the website, and BorrowBox every month will just send me a list of the stuff that customers have requested. And then we have something called campaign titles. And these are a selection of books each month that have simultaneous access for 60 days. And we usually get 500 copies of them. So that means that in theory, 500 people could take the book out at the same time. They're more expensive than a normal ebook. They're usually around £50. But it is worth it in terms of the issues. The really popular stuff, we end up sometimes buying another 500 when it's really popular. But what that does, we can put it at the top of our website and say, these are the books that you'll be able to take out. You won't have to be in a queue. So we do that. My colleagues make that selection, but it's obviously a limited selection. It's what the publishers have agreed that we can have. But usually stuff that's maybe not, you won't get new releases, but stuff that's maybe a year old. We got Harry Potter, the first Harry Potter, this month, which was actually more expensive than the £50, but we've already used them all up. So they're a good thing that we do. So in terms of, you know, how I decide what we want for the collection, the new titles, it's fairly straightforward. It's the big name releases that our customers want. I go through the list each month and just, you know, obviously think, well, we're obviously going to get Richard Osman. We check. Belinda are very good sending me out lists. So if I've missed any that were popular, we'll buy those. I check the BorrowBox charts, which are the national charts for whatever across the nation of what's been borrowed on BorrowBox. I sometimes use loan data, but it's not the easiest thing to go and look through to see what's been borrowed, because it's not like a library management system, and our library management system doesn't link to eBook loans, so it's quite difficult to see on Belinda's system. But you can get an idea of what's popular. Something I've noticed, because I also look at physical stock, is that some of the stuff that's popular with ebooks wouldn't necessarily be that popular in physical. There'd be books that I wouldn't probably buy in hardback because, you know, they might be too literary or might be too niche. And actually, some of our readers on ebooks seem to like those things. So, I get those. Also, as we were discussing before, because we do the audio, if there's something I'm not sure about, I won't get both. I won't get it in both formats. And as I think Catherine was saying, sometimes the ebooks can be almost as expensive as the audio. And in that case, I will get the audio, because with the audio, we get to keep them for permanently. They don't expire. There's no limits. So it's more worth it to buy any audio. I won't go into it. I'm sure most of us know how we buy books. So, you know, it's the usual thing, bestseller lists, book talk, and that sort of thing. There's the seasonal promotions, so summer reading challenge, things like that. Specific promotions at local authority level. Manchester this year we're doing a love stories festival, so they had a list of romantic books that they wanted to buy, so we got those. Cumbria recently requested, they're doing a promotion on climate change, so I got some titles there. There's the reading well, all of those things. Particular communities. Some authorities may have a particular community that other authorities wouldn't have, so they would ask me to buy books for those. And we get quite a lot of a curated list from our supplier. And this is helpful. In terms of time, obviously it's quite time consuming to look through everything that's available. So what they'll do is they'll go through and see what books are missing in popular series, books that probably did expire a long time ago that we should still have, which I do find very useful, or local authors, things like that. So they send those to me on a quarterly basis, so I can have a look and top up anything that I think we should have. In terms of the challenges of doing all of this, it's the balancing and commeeting demands. We have big reservation lists. I don't want to spend all my money on books that we already have, and then but you obviously don't want to put off customers who don't want to wait 6 months for a book. But we also want all the new releases. We want a range of books. We want the popular stuff, but it's also good to get the more niche books. Then there's requests. There's different authorities might want to buy books that other authorities wouldn't be interested in, but obviously it's a shared collection. So yeah, that's the biggest thing. And again, it comes down to the budgets that we have. The demand outstrips what we spend. We're increasing our numbers every year of borrowers, but we're not increasing our budgets. And there's only so much we can do. So that's the main problem there. Availability of titles. Again, as Catherine said, not all the publishers allow you to have titles, or they make you wait 3 months for them, which is very frustrating for our customers. They wonder why we haven't got popular titles. So those are all the main issues. So what we need from publishers, all publishers need to be on board. I know there's Hachette. I know we all know that it's Hachette. That would be good. I had a request from Martina Cole the other day, and they're probably wondering why we don't have Martina Cole, but we can't get those. But also, not just big publishers, but the smaller publishers as well. More direct engagement. We don't really have any direct engagement with publishers. It's mainly done through Belinda, who are very good, I have to say. But it would be great, particularly for the smaller publishers who need to promote their books more, really. And then it comes down to the range of licensing models. This helps with the cost. It would be good to do a pay-per-use for some smaller books. When we did the licensing project, I was able to buy, obviously, the independent publishers. And for books I didn't think would maybe go out that much, I could do pay-per-use. Simultaneous access, obviously, that's more attractive for customers. So yeah, basically a choice and a flexibility. So if we buy a book under one model, we might decide that actually it's really popular, so we might want to do this model. And yeah, I've just put cost. I don't understand why there's so much more than physical books, to be honest. That just seems, unreasonable. So those are kind of the main points, really.
That's really fantastic. There's one question that's actually come up, is how do you get on with product groups, from Alison? So
product groups, yeah, we've just started using those. Once I figured out how to actually do the product group, because it was a bit complicated at first. But yeah, I set one up for the licensing project. We did one to highlight some of the independent publishers. The issue that we have is that we can only log on to our individual website. So, but we've recently set up a cross-authority marketing group, and I think the idea is that some people will come up with a list, and then they'll be able to log in and do it for all of us, because it's binding staff in the libraries to do it. I think, as with everything, this stuff takes time. So if you can, but we've now got a lead for marketing for the consortium, who I think is going to start doing that, and then we can all hopefully do similar things. if we want to do a cross promotion. But yeah, we have just started using it, but it's not something we've done that much. I think I've created one so far.
Okay, that's great. I'm going to go back to some of the questions that I asked Catherine as well,
Yeah.
and particularly because we have got some indie publishers on the call that are really keen to distribute their books through libraries and build up their readership through libraries. They recognise the power of libraries for gaining readership as well. So, how would you like to hear from indie publishers yourself?
I think it might be useful, particularly for our local ones, to like organise events.
Yeah.
I think that would be a good thing to do. I'm sure there's local ones in the Manchester and Northwest region
Oh,
that
there
we could
certainly
use.
is.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I think that's a way of getting, because some of the books, are very good. But it's just trying to promote it. So yeah, so some events, maybe do stuff locally. Would be good.
And what I was hearing as well as a common thread is just having that choice of licenses, of having it on a cost per circulation, or the multi-access ones that you can really promote it to reader groups, and put a lot more effort behind promoting it as well. One question that publishers often raise is the Martina Cole would be a good example of one, is if it's not available in the library, do you think people go off and buy the book instead?
Yeah, well, yeah, maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, it's one of the concerns, that we find with publishers, is that if you make it so easy to borrow from the library and no frictions, because you can just sit at home and borrow it, why would anyone go and buy a book again, kind of thing? So but I think with some of the research we've been doing through the pilot is that we do find that if it's not available in the library, people will just borrow something else. They wouldn't necessarily go and buy it. And I just wondered if you had any insights or anecdotal evidence around that.
I don't know. I mean, I think people who use libraries also buy books. I think it's both, isn't it? Like, you want to try out. I think if you want to try out a book, you might, I don't know, you might want to lease it and then you might buy it. I mean, I do that sometimes. I do both. But yeah, I mean, I know, I'm sure they have their reasons for not, but it just seems a bit, it's just frustrating.
Yeah, no, I can totally appreciate that. Just looking at your physical book collection, do you find that your range in physical is replicated in E, and that the borrowing trends are the same?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the really popular stuff is popular in both. But definitely, I don't know. I find the odds, some titles are perhaps more popular, because I think I think we do get a somewhat younger audience, maybe, who wouldn't come into a library.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So I think there are some titles. I mean, I would look at them and think, I wouldn't read that, but clearly that's very popular amongst young adults on TikTok or something, and then they'll do very well, all that kind of stuff. Probably more so than in a physical library, because we don't get a lot of young adults coming into physical libraries. So that is good, and I think that's good. It's gives people a different option. But
do any of our publishers in the audience have any questions they want to put on the chat, or come on the screen and ask any questions? Just raise your hand at the top of the screen if you do. I know we haven't got Stu here today, and I know people were quite keen to hear from him about how he engages with indie publishers. And I think a lot of what you've said today, Carol and Catherine, is really, it's about, making yourselves known. I think publishers find it quite hard to find out who to engage with in a library, to send their promotional materials to, be it email addresses or physical materials. And I think Stu is very prolific on social media, talking about indie publishers' books, talking about books that he's been reading and championing. He's really researched all of the local publishers to Leeds and reached out to them and said, hey, let's have events and what have you. So I think that we that there's some recommendations that will come out of the project around how to make it easier for publishers and librarians to find each other. but I think that's some of the quick wins is maybe on social media and tagging the publishers that you're keen to hear from, and get even, as I said, physical art copies that can be sent through to you to either consider purchasing for the library or review yourselves. I know a lot of librarians are reviewing books themselves and are influencers themselves as well. So that's what Stu would have talked about, plus the efforts that he goes to in the libraries to really make sure there's prominent physical displays of the physical books from indie publishers and talk about them. But that's great to see, Catherine, that you'd like to work with indie publishers more. One of our publishers has said is, would librarians be happy for emails to be shared with publishers, even if they're generic emails, the info at or stock manager at or something like that we could maybe create a database and share with publishers as well. Yeah, either directly through Libraries Connect or the Reading Agency even. I don't know if Catherine or Carol, you want to answer that.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't mind my email being on there. It's probably easier than having a generic one, to be honest. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, I forgot to put my email on actually, but if anyone wants my email, I can add that.
Yeah,
happy.
I'll put it in.
And events as well. I think, if publishers can reach out to you for author events, etc., I think that seems to be a good way of doing it as well, either in person or online. I'm just trying to go through the chat. Have I missed anything, Emma? Is there anything there because there's been so much chat going on, I'm trying to follow it and make sure that we haven't missed anything.
There were a couple of questions in the Q&A. I don't know whether you can see that, Emma.
Yeah, I'm just going on to that.
But I think we've covered most of them. There was one around tickets for the Reading Agency, which Kimberly has answered, if anyone else is interested.
Brilliant.
The question was, where can I get tickets and attend one of the Reading Agency upcoming roadshows? And Kimberly has said that the tickets will be available in October and will share across social media and in our newsletters, etc.
Brilliant. And that's a good way of discovering titles actually, and publishers that you may not have heard of before as well. And as part of this project, we've done a couple of roadshows with indie publishers as well that were really well received, where publishers will come on and pitch their books and say why it would be a good read and talk about the plot, etc.
One more question has just appeared from Alan about Overdrive and BorrowBox and whether they both have to be registered with. And I don't know the answer to that, and I'm not sure if you would, Emma, but maybe somebody else has experience with both.
So they don't use each other's listings. I think they operate as completely separate entities. So you'll either have your contract with Overdrive or BorrowBox or both, but they certainly don't interact with each other. They're really completely separate entities that do things totally differently. So I know some library authorities have both to access some of the stock that may be available only exclusively to some, or the business models may be exclusive to some. But yeah, I think they are very separate companies and do compete with each other. Do we have any other questions or final comments? If not, I'd like to say a huge thanks to Carol and Catherine for sharing your insights. Big thank you as well to everybody for all of your questions, for sharing your experiences as well. It's been super, super interesting. I've really learned a lot from reading what you've been sharing as well. And a big thanks to Libraries Connected and Arts Council England for this project. I think it's really enlightened a lot of us about how, as I said, the ecosystem's working, what the challenges are, and what some of these potential solutions might be. And a big thanks to the publishers that have participated in the pilot as well and made their books available on different business models. It's again been really insightful for us to see how this might pan out in the future. There will be a recording available that you could share with colleagues as well. So Emma will make that available in due course. But thank you once again for everyone coming along.
Thank you.